So apparently there was a recent posting for a job at PlayStation that kind of hinted to persons that PlayStation might just be going full third party. In my opinion, they are kind of there in terms of publishing on the PC, but for some of the purists, the die-hard PlayStation fans, they don't count the PC as going full-blown third party. Well, I feel they're going full-blown third party. But what this really struck me, how this really struck me, is not going to be like all the rest of them talking about out there. The rest persons talking about, Xbox versus PlayStation, ponies versus bots, whatever. No. Console warring, not my thing. What struck me is the fact that for some reason, Xbox normally leads the way. Normally leads the way in quite a few innovative ways, innovative thoughts, innovative processes. But yet, they are basically dead last in the, if you want to say console war, but in the console market overall, they're dead last when it compared to them, Nintendo and Sony. They are dead last, right? And Phil Spencer himself admitted that they're in last, third place. And they lost one of the most crucial generations, which would have been the Xbox One generation. But the thing is that Xbox normally has led, history have shown about some of the fundamental changes in the gaming industry. Xbox has always been at the forefront for a large majority of them. A large majority. So it's kind of sad to see that all the Xbox is this more forward-thinking, more innovative company. They are still in dead last. So what I'm going to do today is just go through a few of those innovative first mover steps that Xbox took, and yet they're still in last. Because at the end of the day, why do we buy a game console? It's to game. So yeah, that's the post right there. And so for me, this is just Sony now following Xbox. They realized that, I think they said Forza 5 sold like 2 million on PlayStation, and that was an Xbox exclusive for years. Microsoft exclusive. And so you realize that they are now saying, wait, there's money to be made here. Because if PlayStation put their games on Xbox, on Nintendo, if the install base of Xbox is like 30 million, 40 million, and even if I get a sale of 2 million, 3 million, we're still making bank because we would have gotten a lot of sales on the PlayStation. And so they chose to go the third party route. That's what they are doing now. And so they're following Xbox. People give Xbox a lot of licks for that. There were a lot of fanboys upset, mad. Those who were PlayStation were gloating. Those who were Xbox fans were bemoaning that, oh, why did they buy Xbox if they're going to just go third party, blah, 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 blah. Microsoft understood. It's marketing, it's money, it's the bottom line. Sony doing the same thing now. So what are some other ways in which Microsoft led, Sony followed, but yet Microsoft is still in third place? Let's go way back to the beginning. So we're going way back to the beginning. Now, the original OG Xbox. This right here, hard drive. Xbox was one of the first to put a hard drive in a home console. And now today, you can't even imagine a home gaming system without a proper storage, without a proper, well, SSDs now, but hard drive. You needed storage. Because back in the day, PlayStation 2 had to rely on what we call, maybe you youngins might not remember, but the memory card. So Xbox came out and said, okay, no, memory card, we don't need all that. Let's get them a hard drive so that persons can save the games when they want, anytime. Do you know the amount of quick saves I did, especially in games like Morrowind? Those games allowed us to save right there and then. You could not really do much of that with the PlayStation and the memory card. And of course, you have to buy the memory card separately. And the memory card costs money. So there was an extra fee that you had to pay. Whereas Xbox, it was a built-in solution. And that set the groundwork for home systems going forward. Every one of them after that had a hard drive of some sort or onboard storage to save your progress, save your music back then, save your pictures, your captures, whatever. So Xbox led the way with that. Another way in which, look at back to the OG again, look at this port right here. That is the Ethernet port that allowed for broadband connectivity. So this was one of the first systems with an Ethernet port that allowed for broadband connectivity for online play. And we're going to come to that later on. The Dreamcast had a dial-up modem, I think. It was dial-up, so it was still slow. But this one, the Xbox, the OG Xbox, had the Ethernet port that set us up for online play. And of course, today, we can't even picture a home system without an Ethernet port or even Wi-Fi built in for online play. And then, of course, what did Sony do? Follow suit, and they launched their adapters. So they launched their Ethernet adapter, the hard drive adapter. I think one of the games that really utilized it back then was Final Fantasy, I think 11, one of those. Okay, yeah. So it allowed for some limit variation of online play in a sense. It wasn't as robust as Xbox Live, as we're going to look at later on. But either way, Microsoft led the way in the hard drive, in the Ethernet for future. They saw that the future is broadband, online, interaction, gaming. And so they led with that one. But yet, they still end up in last. Then we have, as I've alluded to, Xbox Live. Xbox Live was one of the first services, online services offered by the console manufacturer, Microsoft in this case, right? And so you were able to play your games online, various games, you were able to play online, and this was just the dawn of it. Of course, it rose to real prominence in the Xbox 360 era, where online became a real thing. Halo, you rocking the Halo online, the Gears online, they became a real thing in the 360 era. It was the original was the starting of it, and then the 360 era launched it. And of course, you can imagine today not having these services. And of course, PlayStation followed suit, right? They followed suit with their very own PSN, right? Yeah, the PSN network. And I think it came about in the PlayStation 3 era. And so back then, it was free-to-play multiplayer. So you could even say that, because even today, you have to play multiplayer. But back then, so Microsoft was doing it, Sony wasn't, but then they launched their PSN network. So they follow suit, again, they were behind Microsoft in terms of online infrastructure. And so I'm pretty sure we cannot picture playing today without our online servers, without PSN, and without Xbox Live. Xbox Live was one that helped them to dominate the 360 era. And as Phil rightfully said, they shouldn't have lost the Xbox One era. That's what got them in last place today, because of losing that era. Another staple that came to prominence in the 360 era is achievements. Believe it or not, Microsoft was one of the first to do achievements, where they were before Sony. So Microsoft launched achievements, the game achievements, during the 360 era, where you play, you know how achievements go. And of course, Sony followed suit with their own variant, where you had the trophy system. Some say it is better. I feel it's better. I feel the trophy system is better than the achievement system. They need to revamp the achievement system. But either way, Microsoft started first. And then could imagine today where there's so many trophy hunters out there, so many achievement hunters, that would not have been a real thing. You have trophy scores, achievement scores, that would have a gamer score, that would have been a thing if Microsoft did not do that. Even Steam, they got the achievements. So you see that Microsoft was leading in that regard. Sony came, they kind of passed them because I like trophies better. But still, this was something innovative, and that shaped the gaming industry as it is today. It even shaped the way in which we play games. In relation to subscription model. Now, Game Pass was launched during the Xbox One era, and it started really rising up in the Series era. And so Sony decided they need an answer for that. And so Microsoft launched Game Pass first, and then Sony launched their PSN Plus with all the perks, the essentials, whatever. They launched that, where you're able to get a game catalog, access those games, etc., etc. But Microsoft started that first with Game Pass, and then Sony came after and did their own thing. Right now, Game Pass kind of paying off for Microsoft in a sense, because when you hear about game subscription, that is the poster child. Game Pass is that benchmark for online gaming subscription, right? And so for some, negative connotation, for some, positive. For us as consumers, win-win. So of course, Sony had to follow suit and did their PSN Plus and the different variants, the essentials, whatever else they have. And so you see them there again following. So Xbox leading and Sony following, but yet of course Microsoft is behind still. And now something again that has caused a lot of uproar. I mentioned at the top of the video, third-party support. Microsoft decided, okay, well, we lost the console war. Let's just put some of our games on the competition. And so they had initial 4, Grounded, Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves. They launched that. And now the floodgates are open and they are launching other games day and date on PlayStation 5. And so again, Sony has, as I showed the post earlier, has decided to follow in that regard and they're thinking about becoming full-on third-party publishers. Not to go too much in the weeds, but if you're looking at Xbox leading and Sony following again, the move towards the x86 architecture. What that basically means is that Microsoft decided to just build their system, the Xbox, OG Xbox, out of basically PC pads. So it was like a mini computer. They had a version of Windows running. They had a NVIDIA chip. And so they had a normal computer hard drive, as I showed you earlier. Sony back then, with PS2, you had the Emotion Engine. In the PS3, they had the Cell processor. It was when the PlayStation 4 launched, they chose to go the route that Xbox took, where they basically used the x86 architecture. So they just pluck stuff off the shelf. You know, they use AMD pads and that kind of stuff to build out the gaming system, and they haven't looked back since. The PlayStation 5 is the same way. Series systems are x86 architecture, right? So those are just ways in which Sony followed Microsoft. Microsoft set the trend, but yet, you know, they are still behind. Last one I'm going to look at, you know, these are just some other by the way kind of thing. Streaming, right? Using the Xbox as a multimedia platform. Netflix started streaming on the 360 and the PlayStation followed a year or two after, because this was, you could have used a 360 as a multimedia system, play Windows movies on it, you stream Netflix on it, and then Sony wasn't that lucky. It was later on. Imagine you have to use this for the PS3, a Netflix disc, you have to put it in and that kind of stuff. But later on, they got the app and they started streaming like everyone else. So you see, right? What we can see here is that Microsoft tend to be ahead. Oftentimes, they tend to be ahead of the pack, ahead of the game. Sometimes they are too early to the party. For example, Always Online. That was too early. Back then it was too early. And so they suffered for that one. But the point is that, for whatever reason, Xbox has been one of the most innovative companies in the home gaming space. But yet, they never had what it took to be number one, which were the games. The games, because remember, even in the 360 era, it was the 4, right? You had your, well, not 4, but you had your Forza, you had your Halo, you had your Fable back then, so you had the Gears, so you had these 10 poles that they used to rely on heavily, but over time kind of went away from first party. Sony picked up on the first party thing and they ran with it, and that's where they've been in the lead ever since. Because I guess Microsoft might have focused on the wrong things. You could say that, maybe not, but still, it doesn't discount the fact that they have been one of the more innovative of the two in terms of pushing the gaming industry forward. Sony just coming along, copying, and maybe doing some things better than the originators. Right, so that's it for my video here. I just wanted to put a little twist on not Sony following Microsoft into possible third-party support, where Microsoft already saw it and know that's the future. No Sony coming around. Alright, so thanks for watching.